My name is Ashley Jones, and this is Girls Gone Right.
So I have Ashley and Mike Jones with me here today. You might know them as Grantham. And Mrs. Grantham.
I guess Mrs. Grantham is my name.
Yeah. So I met you guys a few months ago and came all the way out to Idaho to do some shooting with Grant. And he introduced me to his amazing wife. Mm-hmm. So before I even came out here, Mike was hyping you up so hard and would just say that you were such a badass. And he's like, you're gonna love my wife. She works out and she's just amazing. So from day one, Mike has just been hyping you up behind the scenes. And I feel like that's such a good husband, is like the things he says when you're not listening.
Yeah, he says so many good things.
I'm the hype man of the century.
Yes.
I'm good.
Yeah, you're great.
Yeah.
I'm still with you, so.
Fair.
So when I came out to Idaho, then I actually got to meet you. Mm-hmm. And best wife ever. He killed it. He married right, found such a good woman. And
thank you.
It was like, what really stood out to me was the way that you guys talk about each other when no one's listening. Like, that's true character, is like who you are when no one's looking. And when you're not listening, Mike is saying the best things about you.
How did I talk about him? I can't remember.
Oh my gosh, I remember when we went to go get lunch one day, like you were calling him and you're like, I miss him. And it was just like the little things. And like, it was just, you were like, you spoke so highly of your marriage. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that really stood out is, you know, sometimes you're around someone that's in a marriage and they're just like, when they're not with them, they're like, oh my gosh, he does this. And it's kind of just like all these complaints.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
They complain about their spouse.
Yeah, there's a lot of complaining. I think it's easier to complain. But I also think like if you're if that's just a situation you're in the moment, like that's what you're going to talk about. So I guess if you're not doing the work all the time or like making a conscious decision to not complain, then, and that's a situation that person's in, then it's easy to do that. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
And marriage is hard. Like, it's not going to be all, roses all the time. Yeah. Or, honeymoon stage. So, if you're not careful, then...
The honeymoon stage just forever.
It can't,
you guys make it seem that way.
I feel like we're still in the honeymoon stage, so, yeah.
But it shows, because I remember, like, when we had, like, a little game night, you guys were just, like, it felt like hanging out with you guys, it was like you guys just first started dating. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? It was like very like you guys would play with each other, make jokes, and like that is such an important thing to have in a relationship, because sometimes it's something that only starts in the beginning and it fades away.
Yeah.
But you guys continued to have that throughout your marriage after years and years. And usually like when you first start dating, you're like, oh my gosh, like you tell your girlfriends like, oh, this is such a good guy, and like you can't stop talking about him. But like years later, you guys are still doing that.
Yeah, it's so fun. And I would say like I would say like I definitely am like not I definitely have, I would say, like to my good friends, complained a little bit here and there, but that's just like to my friends who like I can really trust, and it's not even anything that bad. But even then you got to be careful.
I don't put my shoes away.
Oh yeah, he doesn't put his shoes away, or like, we both work really, really hard, and so sometimes I'm putting in 150%, and sometimes he's putting in 150% at home, But so I think to the outside world, sometimes it can, it can not always seem perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect all the time. I think like you just have to be like, okay, let's roll with the punches and see what life has for us today, and if I need to put in more, great. If he needs to put in more, great. And then I'm sure at some time down the road it'll swap. So I think like every relationship can look different to people who are perceiving it the way that they are. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I have learned specifically in this relationship, like, okay, let's always talk well of each other, and kind of bolster that in each other, so that every day we want to treat each other well every day. That makes us want to treat each other better every day. instead of just focusing on the negative.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
love
know.
that. How long have you guys been married for?
Let's see. Well, we had our first date 5 years ago in November, and then
We got married in
we
courthouse married.
Yeah, we got married in a courthouse. So we actually got married 5 months after we started dating.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Like,
then
when you know, you know.
yeah, and
That's pretty much it.
I would say probably most of our family didn't know. So if they find out, this is how they're finding out, actually.
We can't keep track of it. It's too much, dude.
Yeah. So, but I mean, we just, we were in love, and, it just seemed like the right thing to do because we figured we found the right person and we were right. So,
Yeah.
lucky us.
Prove them wrong. You're like, we did it. We're in love. We have a good marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what my dad told me was like I wouldn't do any better.
Oh, yeah. I think so we were like 2 weeks in probably, and
Yeah.
you FaceTimed your dad. So this was over FaceTime, and we were in Mike's shitty Toyota Tundra.
Toyota Tundra had 500,000 miles on it. That's 500,000 miles and was still running. The only thing that killed it was a rat crawled into it and got sucked into the engine. And that was it. And it was
Like, besides
but it
that dang
still
rat.
had 500,000 miles. That's incredible for a Toyota Tundra 2001.
That's a trusty vehicle.
But I got in it the first time, and it literally, I shut the door, and then this, water started just dripping down in between the two of us, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my God, you're like, wow.
Yeah. So we FaceTimed his dad, and his dad and I were talking for maybe 2 minutes, and then Mike just gets this text, and what did it say?
I just wasn't going to do any better.
That was it.
Yeah, he said, "You're not gonna do any better. You gotta marry her."
Wow. That's some good advice. So that was when you guys first started dating. What was your first date?
Oh, well, actually, we just recreated our first date. Mike took me on a surprise date for our 5-year dating anniversary, which we kind of celebrate more than our wedding anniversary. But yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
I mean, I feel like that was the day that our life started. So, so he took me back to Spokane, Washington to recreate our first date. And
That's so cute.
it was literally so fun, and we just giggled and laughed the whole time. It was great. It was like we were really on our first date all over again.
It was, let's see. So we went to a sushi restaurant, which I'd never been to before, and it was pretty good. It was a good sushi restaurant.
Yeah, it was a good restaurant. Yeah.
Do you want to tell them what you ordered?
So okay, sushi, real sushi, not like rolls, but sashimi, nigiri, and stuff. And so I usually, when you order, you get 2 pieces of sashimi. Well, when I ordered the 2 piece, I ordered sashimi, it was salmon or something. It came out in this big fountain, jumbo, there was probably 20 pieces.
30.
Not 30, you're
Definitely
exaggerating. And you just hit me in the face.
You're supposed to speak into it.
Okay.
Did you eat all the sushi?
No,
No.
I
There
didn't
was a
eat
lot of
all of
sushi.
it. I literally I ordered.
You're sweating
Well,
while
'cause,
eating.
I ordered the 2 pieces of sashimi, and then I ordered a roll on top of that. So the roll came out first, and I was like, oh, weird. Normally the two small pieces would come out with the roll.
In the background,
No, it was
they're
huge.
slaving away making this platter of sushi.
Yes.
So anyhow,
The kitchen's just chaos.
So anyhow,
Yeah.
my 4 or 5 rolls or whatever arrive, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then her, she ordered $100,000 worth of sushi.
Wait, was this your first date or was
This
this?
was the first date.
Oh my God.
And she was like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm like, ooh, that's your problem. I started eating my rolls. She's like, do you want it? I'm like, nope,
No.
that's all you.
Yeah, well, you didn't even like raw sushi at the time.
No, I wasn't that down with it.
Yeah, but now
Okay.
he is.
Yeah.
I make him a better person.
Yeah,
True.
changed him since day one.
Yeah.
For the better.
Yes.
Okay, so how did you know that Mike was the one? You said on the first date you kind of knew.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, okay. Here's some context.
Wine.
Oh, wine. Wine was a good indicator. So here's some context though. So like Mike and I met on Tinder, and 2 months before I went on this date with Mike, I had just broken up with someone who like did not appreciate me, did not like treat me that well. I mean, not everything was bad, but like, oh man, like I just was not myself in this relationship. And so I had taken, 2 months, and I did not want to be in a relationship after 2 months. Like I just wanted to be by myself. But I was going on dates to kind of like meet new people around the area because I didn't really want to date
As one does
people.
on Tinder.
Yeah, exactly. So when I met Mike, I was not expecting to even go on a second date with anyone. Like I was just gonna get free dinner, really. And
I was your first.
You were a big free dinner.
Yeah. And I had 7 dates scheduled with different people over like the next 2 weeks. And so I went on this date with Mike. Yes. And I went on this date with Mike, and like, oh man, like I could not stop thinking about him. Like I just had this feeling. I literally got into my car after our date, and I like sort of gagged because I just had this feeling. I was like, I've never felt this before. Like his smile, he was kind, like he was adventurous. He seemed just so like genuine. And it was just such a nice, refreshing change from what I had just been with. So, and I didn't know it was going to be a forever thing. I just was like, I just was infatuated. Like, and I don't know. He was so much fun.
Usually I have this effect on men from my channel, so it was really nice to work on Ashley for once. It was something to my
You're like,
benefit.
yes,
That was
finally caught a woman.
I caught a woman. Yeah.
So, Mike, how did you know Ashley was the one?
So Ash cracks me up. So first Tinder date, last Tinder date.
Yeah.
First and last. We had been talking, and our first date, when it was scheduled, I ended up having to work. The military is just terrible, and so I ended up having to work like a late night, so we had to reschedule to was it the next day?
Yeah, you rescheduled it to the
was
next
the next
day. Yeah.
And so.
So he cancels our first date on me.
Okay, but I rescheduled immediately. It was like.
Why did you cancel?
The military. He had a train, like exercise.
I can't remember.
Overnight exercise.
Always, every time.
Yeah.
You never know. But we rescheduled immediately. I was like, hey.
You did.
And I still want to go on this date with you. So
And after you canceled the first date, you then told me, before we actually went on the date, that you had kids.
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure like when to broach that topic. Once, what do you say? So I'm once divorced, but so Ashley says, well, you got your starter wife, so I am your. What am I?
Oh, you're my starter husband.
Oh my God.
It's not funny. So anyhow, we went on the first date, and I was obviously nervous because you're hot from the pictures.
Oh.
And she walked in, and I don't know. It was kind of just gone from the moment she walked in. She smiled at me. That was just kind of it for me. From her smile, and everything just kind of flowed with that. And it was over for me. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think I was ever going to get married again. I thought I'd have some good relationships, but I was like I had such a for me not a great experience beforehand. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do this again. And she walked in, she saw me, she smiled, and I was like, I think I said this to you after I came out of that last surgery when I came out of anesthesia.
Yeah. So he just had a surgery, and he was laying on the bed and just kind of coming out of it, and he was like, "You're so beautiful," and he was in so much pain because they hyperextended his arms while he was in surgery, and he was in so much pain from that, and all he could think about and like say to me was how beautiful I was and how much he loved me, and it started making me cry, and the nurse was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, I just love him so much. It was so funny, but and all of this is just so gushy. Like, I mean, this is probably why I gagged in my car after my first date.
Yeah, if only you knew all
much.
of this was to come.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I was still, it was crazy.
Oh.
First
It was
date, yeah.
crazy.
So first date, I think we both knew. I knew when I first saw her, and you know, it was just good. We just kind of knew that was it for both of us.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, somehow I just had this feeling that that this was it.
Yeah.
It was so weird. Like, you know, when you're young and you're dating, you just take so many risks and you just don't even think about it. And that's kind of how I felt again, that I just wasn't even thinking about it. I was just going in like head first. And I was like, okay, whatever comes, if it doesn't work out, at least I gave it a shot. And if it does, then awesome. Like,
Yeah.
And I never even knew someone like him existed. It was just crazy. And I still feel that way. Like sometimes I look at my life and I'm like, and my husband and my kids and Mike's family, I couldn't even, like, I don't deserve his family, like, at all. And they're amazing. Like, they're incredible. So, and that was the other thing too, like my past relationship, the one right before this, like his family was not very nice to me. So, and I'd never experienced that before, where someone's parents who I was dating didn't like me.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the world where protection meets style. Introducing the dazzling lineup of glitter guns from Online Outfitters. Because defending yourself should never mean compromising on style. Featuring reliable handguns from Sig Sauer and Glock, designed to empower every woman on her journey to self-defense. These aren't just firearms, they're statements of confidence adorned with a touch of sparkle that refuses to be overlooked. Online Outfitters believes that everyone deserves access to quality self-defense tools without breaking the bank. With their unbeatable prices and frequent sales, shopping at Online Outfitters protects you and your bank account. Visit onlineoutfitters.com today. Being safe never goes out of style.
So it was and I tried really hard. And like with this relationship, I feel like I'm not even trying. I'm just being myself, and Mike loves me for who I am. And when you feel appreciated in a relationship and somebody is loving you for who you are, I feel like it actually brings out better things in you.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I guess it just feels easy, the relationship,
Yeah.
you know. But to be clear, you know, you said there's another guy like me. Had you gone on more dates, you probably would have found out, like, I was like, it's like dating like the ugliest brother, and then you meet the family. So like, I'm just lucky I got it on the first date. You know?
Well, I
You were
was
way better
headed-
than me, so I was like, oh, thank God.
I was headed to my second date the next day. Actually, I had a date scheduled the next day, and I tried to keep like a day in between them, but since he canceled our first date,
Yeah.
and it was
Screwed up
so
the
the next
schedule.
day I was headed to my second date. I was like 5 minutes away, and he texted me and was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Hanging out with you." And so I went and hung out with Mike instead.
Oh my gosh.
And then I canceled all the rest of my dates after that. So I never
That's
went on
love.
another Tinder date, and he was my only Tinder date I ever went on.
Wow. Hear that, Tinder?
at Tinder, sponsor us.
So, was there ever a point in your relationship where you thought you guys were going to break up?
Actually, yeah.
You're like, after all this lovey-dovey stuff, you're like, yeah.
So not like how you think, though. Not how like you would feel like it would normally go. Mike, when we on our first date, you know, he told me, you know, he was in the military, and I was
at the end of my enlistment. I had tried out for another thing. I thought if I simply let my enlistment run out, that because I didn't sign anything, I was okay, but that's not the way the military works. So anyhow, I was informed like a month into our relationship. Was it like a month into our relationship?
It was
December?
2 months into our relationship.
Towards the end of December, that I had a report date, and my time in the military, like, oh no, we're just starting. Like, I had like another 6 years, and I was like, oh crap. So anyhow, I had to tell Ash that not only was I in for 6 years, more years, but I had to report to JBLM, but not just report to JBLM, but I had like.
You had to go to officer school.
I had to go to officer school and then team and blah, blah, blah. And so I had like a lot of training, like at least a year of training ahead of me minimum.
Yeah.
So
And
anyhow, that happened.
so at the beginning, you know, I told him like I didn't necessarily want to date someone who was in the military, and just because there's so many like weird things that come along with it, like you don't really have that much freedom to go do whatever you want, and we didn't, you know. But so he told me, you know, at the beginning he was supposed to get out after 2 months. He had like 2 months left, and then he tells me, you know, 2 months after I had already like fallen in love with him, like, and then, you know, so he tells me that he has to re-up for another 6 years and move to the opposite side of Washington State, where I had just like broke up with my ex-boyfriend, moved from that side of Washington State back to Idaho where I met Mike, and I had sworn I would never live in Washington again. So there was that. So I go and I like go to my aunt's house where I was living. She was like my best friend. And we really loved being roomies together. And by the way, when she met Mike, she knew he was the one. She knew that like I was gonna spend the rest of my life with him and that this was it. And I had just moved in with her, and she was like so mean to him because she didn't want him to take me away.
Yeah.
So I go to my aunt and I tell her like, hey, I have to break up with Mike because he's moving to, you know, Western Washington where I don't want to be, and he's going to be in the military for another 6 years, which I do not want to be a military wife. Like I did not want that. And so she was like, but wait, you're in love with him. I'm in love with him. You can't break up with him. And I just started sobbing, and I was like, I know. So
Like, we're all in love with him. I guess that's...
And I was so mad at her because she had not said one nice thing to me about Mike. I thought she hated him.
Oh my gosh.
And so she was like, no, I love him. He's perfect for you. You can't break up with him. I was like, oh crap. So I didn't. And then,
You moved?
you know, and then I,
Yeah.
well, you asked.
After officer school.
Yeah,
After officer school.
yeah.
So I had like March is when I finished officer school, I think. March.
Yeah,
And
it
then
was
she flew down
March.
and we drove back from Georgia.
Yeah, we had this
And
big
she got
road
pulled
trip.
over. She got pulled over because she was going like this happens to her every time. She got pulled over and she's going like 90, and like the officer walks up to the window. He's like, good old Georgia, you know, cop, and he's like, you know, how fast are you going, ma'am? She's like 95 miles per hour. And he goes, it's 60. She goes, yep. And he goes, if you were in my position, ma'am, what would you do? And she's like, I'd give me a ticket. And he goes, all right. So he walks away, and I was like, oh my fucking. And so then he comes back, he goes, give me a warning. And I was like, officer, please give her a ticket. She never gets tickets. Like, she always gets away with this. But he let her go. Every time.
Yeah.
Every time it irks me, she's like, oh yeah, I got pulled over, but they gave me a warning. They said, stop having a lead foot for her entire life. So for any officer who pulls her over, she always has a lead foot.
Not always. I have kids now.
Yeah, well, no, you're safe now. Yeah, she's safe now.
That was back in the day.
When she
that
was single,
was-
she drove that, what was it,
That was before I was a married woman.
Like, I don't do that. I don't speed as a married woman.
As a mom, you don't. As a married woman, you had a lead foot too.
Yeah, I did. You're right. Yeah.
So, at what point did you guys say that you loved each other?
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say it first.
I feel like why am I telling all these stories? Okay, you go ahead.
Okay, so it was Thanksgiving, so I guess 3 weeks into our relationship.
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah.
And it was me, her, and one of her friends, and we were driving around, and we stopped at one of her friends' relatives' house or something, and she ran in to go get something. So it was me and Ashton sitting in the car. Obviously, I am muy guapo, and I'm very funny. So I was telling like a funny, right?
Yeah.
I was telling a funny. I was like, "Tell me I'm muy guapo." So I said some joke, and she laughed really hard. She goes, "Oh, I just love you," and I was like, we looked at each other, and she's like, "I didn't mean to say it like that. I do love you. I didn't mean to say it this fast, but I do love you. You don't have to say it back. But then I said it back because I still loved her.
Yeah, well, no, you made fun of me first, and then you said it.
I made fun of her. I'm funny. I had to make fun of her. I'm not very funny.
Yeah, so it just like kind of came out,
Yeah.
and I was like surprised because I literally thought that I said it in my head, and then I look at him and he's like, I'm like, oh God. I was so nervous, and yeah, but it just came out. Like,
Wow.
I was just like, oh God,
Can't take it
love
back.
I have that effect on her.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. So, what has been the biggest struggle in your relationship?
I'll start with this one.
Okay.
She goes over. I think, so struggle, I don't know. I guess we don't really have struggles. I think it's all about mindset about that kind of thing. Because I think anything can be a struggle if you want it to be a struggle, you know, or bad things can be a struggle too. But like, well, there's always going to be things in life that are tough. You know, whether you're early in your marriage and you're trying to figure out, you know, how to meld your two lives together, or, you know, work is going to always have some type of infringement upon your personal time together, or something. There's always going to be something, right? Once you have kids, then they're not sleeping and you're not sleeping. There's going to always be, you know, tough situations, and you can always be like, man, we are struggling. This is a struggle for us. Or you can kind of reframe the way you think about it, and it's just life, man. It's about growth, and it's about you get to experience these things together. You get to go through the good and the bad. Like, you can't know the good without the bad, and so the bad isn't how they say it in psychology. There's like a eustress and a stress, right? The eustress being good stress. There's good stress that makes you grow as a person, and like without that eustress, you know, grow up to be an entitled, spoiled brat, you know, on both sides, and we deal with that in our generation all the time now. So having that stress together and going as like a couple together, I think is really important. So I wouldn't say it was any struggles or anything like that, but it's just, you know, for us, I think we're both very positive people, and we look towards the positive things. And so I don't know that we class anything as a struggle. It's just we got a lot of eustress, and it's it's a lot of growth.
I would say like probably bringing together and bringing the two people together and figuring out how you're going to move forward in the future. Like, I think anybody's going to struggle with that, and I think that is probably, probably our biggest struggle. Like we both grew up in two different kinds of families. We both had different life experiences, you know, and he was in the military. Like, the military doesn't necessarily promote like the best marriages possible, right? And so, and like, you know, he's in a tough military career.
Was, now I'm a LARPer.
Well, was. Yeah, now you're just a professional LARPer.
I use speed bees because it's easier than doing it by hand. Not saying it's faster, but it is so much easier. Speed Bees believes that the only finger that should be sore after range day is your trigger finger. Their loaders don't require a table or a flat surface. Speed Bees works with gloves, so you don't have to take them off during the cold weather to load your mags. Use code GONERIGHT5 for 5% off your purchase at speedbees.com. This code expires December 31st, 2023. Make loading your mag easier and get Speed Bees today.
Did you know that you were going to be married to a professional LARPer?
I hadn't. Oh yeah, I had. Our first date, I had no idea he had a YouTube channel. Like, that was
How
crazy.
embarrassing would that be to open it up with like, what do you do? It's like, YouTube. The YouTube channel was really not that big back then, so it was really not impressive at all.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe wasn't even about that. Like, honestly, I just was like, man, I just don't want you to be in the military. Like, and then you told me you had a career outside of the military already, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, good, that's awesome.
Aspiring rapper.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, but so I think like our biggest struggle is just like, which is probably what a lot of couples have, is, you know, taking your ideals and your values, which hopefully they're mostly aligned when you meet. Like, that's ideal, and ours were aligned for the most part. Like, we grew up in two different kinds of families and economic, you know, like I had economic hardship and he definitely did not, but like somehow morally we kind of had ended up at the same place and come together. And so, I mean, that's ideal, but still, no matter what, you're gonna have things that you're coming from two different places because you're two different people, and you've got to come together, and you got to figure out where you're going to go in the future and how you're going to do that the most cohesively. So I think, like, if anything, all of our struggles kind of stem from that, but they're not really struggles. I mean, we both had terrible relationships before we met each other, and man, do terrible relationships make you appreciate everything that you have and everything that you're like. Our relationship, I feel like I appreciate my relationship more than I would have if I hadn't dated that person before. So
You know the good from the bad, right?
yeah, so it is all about perspective and like seeing the positive, and like I just think like maybe a lot of marriages and relationships do lack an appreciation for the little things, the big things, like, and voicing it, not just like keeping that internal, because if you keep that internal, they're not going to know how much you appreciate it. And appreciation and for the person, and then the person knowing that you appreciate it is just as important.
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, you know, you always want to be growing as a couple and growing as much as you can. But I mean, sometimes you really need to step back and you know, see the forest instead of the trees. You know, you're focusing on like these little issues, but like, you know, we have friends or you know, colleagues that I've worked with where they're like, oh, like I want like a better house, or I want like a better car or something. I'm like, my brother in Christ, you have like an incredible house. You know, you have a car that works. Like, you are better than 99.9 to the millionth decimal place better than any human who has ever lived throughout history up until now. Like, you are doing that well in life. Not to mention just right now here on the earth. So it's like stepping back and having that appreciation for what you have is really important too. And of course, you don't want to just rest on your laurels, and that's not me and Ash at all, but I think that appreciation going throughout the relationship is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are very valid points that you have to show, like the admiration. And I think that's something that, like I said, from the very beginning, you guys do that so well. And relationships lack that. Like, you need to let someone know that you notice.
She's incredible, and she's hot, so, you know.
And she's hot. She's hot. She is.
hot.
She's a hot mom.
Yeah,
Hot mom, hot wife.
Yeah, I've had
100%.
2 kids.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
She's hotter than ever.
So, what is a character trait that you didn't realize that you had until you met Mike?
I think maybe that I'm funny.
Yeah, she's very funny.
Just because you laugh at everything that I say.
like, oh.
So now I feel like I'm funny.
She's a comedian now. For me, I have learned that I can be a lot more organized than I ever thought, because I'm still a disaster, but I'm less of a disaster now. She like cringes because like my house, like when she first started, like she walked in and she's like, where's your couch? I'm like, I do not have a couch. I have places for my guns, and I have places for my editing.
Gun
gear.
sit, that's
I'm
it.
like, there's guns, and there is tuna packets in one pot. And she was like, okay.
Well, and I would say, I didn't even say, where's your couch? I was just silent about the whole situation until he was like, I think it was like our 3rd date, and he says, hey, why don't we go to my house and watch a movie together?
Oh.
And I said, well, you don't have a TV or a couch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he was like, okay. So he literally drives to a furniture store and we buy a couch together.
And then we watched Poldark.
Yeah,
That's romantic.
It's very much so.
You got him to get a couch.
I did. Yeah, on the 3rd date. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, he bought a couch.
You're like, you're the one, and we're gonna go buy a couch.
Yeah. And that was the couch that we had in our first house together.
Aww.
Yeah.
That
was
is so cute.
Yeah.
So, what is something that is a pillar in your relationship that makes it a healthy relationship?
You want to go ahead?
I gotta think on this one.
Okay.
You would like to hear what?
Oh, I love to hear your perspective on things. I would say definitely trust is really important. You know, I would say without trust, you really don't have, you know, a relationship. If you can't trust each other to do the right thing, like, then, I mean, how many people do you know who are just like uber jealous in their relationship? You know, it's like they're away and they're like, you know, they're like, oh, I have to have like the Find My and like I have to like always know precisely what they're doing and
Yeah.
stuff, and it gets crazy, right?
Yeah.
Not that having your spouse's location is bad, because you
Yeah,
should
we
have-
share our
we share a location,
locations.
but like it's not about sharing the location, it's about what's the intent and how do you treat it, right? So I think without that trust, it's really going to begin eating away at a relationship quite early on. Because if you can't trust your partner, they're away at work or they go to do something, and then you're just constantly freaking out. Like that's that's not healthy for a human being.
Yeah.
Go work on yourself, brother or sister, whoever you are.
Well, and trust can be shown in many different forms, or mistrust can be
Yeah.
shown. I mean, not just about like locations and stuff,
Sure.
but I mean, like, to trust someone fully in a relationship, like you're trusting them with your life, with the love that you're sharing, with your kids, with your money, with, your friendships, with everything. Like, you need to trust them in all aspects of life. So, it's a big ask to be married
Yep.
and to have a marriage that the trust is completely there in everything. Like, I know that I can trust Mike to have my back at all times. And, that is something that, like, I think that I am getting better at, actually, is having his back, because girls are mean.
Somebody wrote a mean comment about me, and she wrote like a paragraph response, and then she called me and read it to me. And then after she read the comment and it was like snapping back hard, she goes, "I will die for you." And then hangs up the phone. I'm like, thank you. I would say beyond trust to communication, right? You got to talk.
Yeah.
But everyone talks about communication, but like you got to just not talk, but you got to finish whatever's occurring. So it's not just talking for words, but it's we're not at all like argumentative with each other. Like, I don't think we've never screamed at each other or
Well,
even raised.
I don't like conflict.
Yeah.
And I've never screamed at anybody. So
Yeah, and I've never screamed back. We never raised our voices at each other, because if there's a disagreement or something we need to work through, like it's much better to just talk through it. So we do talk through that thing to completion. Like we get it figured out, and I think that's an important part of communication. Is I think a lot of people will want to like walk away because they just can't handle it, because the two aren't able to discuss things in a way that's polite or respectful to each other. So it's important to have that polite, respectful dialogue, while at the same time talking about tough things or getting the point across that needs to be got across. Because there's going to be times when you're going to get on each other's nerves or in some way offend each other, and you need to let them know that that's a problem. Maybe it's your problem, maybe it's not, but that's why you talk it all the way through.
Yeah, definitely, like, we've had conversations like that or I've said something to him and, not thinking, and
Ditto.
And we're both super busy. We run a business together. We run a family together. We're in a relationship together. We have lots of friendships. We have a lot of things to do. So, like, sometimes when we're talking to each other, it's easy to not say things in the nicest way or whatever. And we've never yelled at each other, but like sometimes I can be in a rush and I'll say something and he'll be like, "All right, Ash, that was not saying you're a bitch, but like you're kind of acting like one." And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, I'm sorry.
I do not say it in that particular. I do not say it like that. I'm very polite.
Yeah, he is much more polite about it, but that's just one scenario where I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, but sometimes, I need that to kind of step outside myself and be like, oh yeah, like I didn't mean it that way at all, and I'm really sorry, but like the words I said, that it still rings true. Like, I still need this done, and this needs to be done this way and for this reason. So, I just need that to like snap out of it and to be like, okay, take a step back, regroup. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, that was kind of bitchy. Let's say it like this instead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would say how you say things is almost as important as what you're saying too.
Yeah.
Because that can really, I think that's how a lot of couples really get into each other's skin, is like they can say things in a way that they know is going to be mean-spirited in nature. Like that's not solving anything. That's like like a little ping of joy to get a little snap back or a clap back, which is really awesome in today's generation, right? But that's not that's not going to work in a relationship. And I mean, not to delve too bad into our generation and what's happening, but like I think young men, young women are learning incorrectly ways of communicating with each other in a way that's going to be beneficial for them long term.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I think another pillar is honesty. Like, yeah, so, you know, trust, communication, and just being honest.